Hey everyone, welcome back to Kayan Al-Bashar, where today we are going to build a gold mine, which is going to be completely adjacent to the Japanese macaques habitat, so you know now where it is. Also, today's video we will actually start by building the habitat and not by wandering off like we did in the last video. Today's video we will wander off at the end of the video where we build something especially interesting to Terra. So Terra, if you're watching this, keep your eyes peeled at the end of the video because it's, I think, really interesting to you. Maybe also interesting to the rest. I think it's just a fun build, and I have no idea why I built it now. Because I originally planned to have that built later, but with that it is a teaser for what's to come. But anyway, so for the gold mine. As I said, it's going to be the habitat of the Timberwolves, and just like the temple, which is the habitat for the Siberian tigers, I ripped it out of its original location because building in a cave is really annoying on two accounts. Because first, lighting. It doesn't work in a cave. In Planko, when you put lighting in a cave, I think after a certain update they did this, it would turn on when it was in a cave. Plant 2 doesn't have that, so even if you fill the cave with lights, it doesn't turn on unless it's actually nighttime. Also, especially with this cave, which has quite a low ceiling, the game sees the ceiling as another floor, or at least sees it as, let's say, the cave floor. So if you want to put something, let's say a rock, on the cave floor, the game first, when you select the rock or any piece, puts it on the ceiling. Most of the time that's just out of bounds of the camera, so you have no idea where the piece is located. You know it's selected, but you can't find it unless you, well, have the sudden idea of like, oh, maybe it put it on the ceiling. Other times, you have literally no idea where it is. It's not on the ceiling, it's somewhere because it is selected, so the game has put it somewhere, but I couldn't find it. So let's just say, by having that problem, because I did build a little bit of like the walls of the cave in the cave, I was so annoyed by the end of it. I stopped building for a little bit. And building while you're annoyed is not a good thing, so by the time I was kind of like calmed down, I just ripped that cave straight out of the actual cave. Well, I ripped it out after finishing the cave walls, which was annoying. So, yeah. Anyway, so for the cave, it's actually, there were some good points to it and some bad points. The bad point was that I didn't take the walls into account. The good point is I didn't take the walls into account. So I probably need to explain that, but there are quite a few pillars in this cave. One of these is what connects the, well, let's first say that the cave is separated into three sections. So you have the cave floor, then you have a little bit of a higher section to the left of the cave, looking from outside of the cave, and then on the right you have another higher place where the wolves or the animals sleep. And to get to the sleeping area, you need to get onto the higher area, which you get to from the cave floor. I think that's kind of obvious, but anyway, so as I said, there are quite a few pillars, and I placed one on the area or the slope where the wolves should be able to get to the upper area or higher, well, the first higher area. However, that pillar was a little bit too close to the actual cave wall, which means that the hitbox of the wolves was too large for that, and they couldn't get to the first higher area, which means they couldn't get to the sleeping area. So I had to knock down that pillar and change a little bit about the slope of basically the ramp they had to get up. And then, well, also had to remove a few planks of the bridge that leads to the sleeping area, because they need to cross a bridge to get to the sleeping area, which they happily did as soon as I knocked down that pillar. Might help that, well, it's their sleeping area and I put a toy there. What was it, like that squeezy bone toy, which is usually highly annoying when you give it to a dog because it squeaks. But yeah, they were very happy and they also immediately went to sleep. So I kind of related to that animal more than I did to any red panda so far. They climbed and they went to sleep immediately. But then to the good point, which is the floating rocks. I didn't think about the walls when I placed those down, because I just wanted to have the look of like a broken pillar where the debris just started floating. However, it was placed in such a way that the hitbox of the walls was again too large to cross, and those floating rocks were at the place where the barrier should be, so where you normally should place a fence. But the walls couldn't get through it because their hitbox was too large, even though there are massive holes. So what you see now is what you get. There's no fence of any kind, and I do think that if we get, let's say, a wolf cub or a wolf baby, they probably would be able to get through it because they have a smaller hitbox, which basically means that all the wolves now are sterile. Yeah, I'm not going to change the habitat any more than I already did. So here you can see that the bridge leading to the sleeping area. You can see the pillar that's yeah, in the way, and yeah, there's not much actually that changes beyond those two things. So there's some planks on the bridge that I later had to remove. Then the ramp to the, well, first higher area, I had to change the slope off. So what you see right now is a little bit too steep for the wolves, which was a little bit weird because it's not that much steeper than the bridge, which they gladly run over. So again, couldn't relate to an animal more. Run over or climb up someplace and then just go to sleep. Yeah, I have something with climbing. I still want to climb the Efteling entrance. So I might want to ever... No, I don't think the Efteling would ever let a person do that. But anyway, so I did also have a little bit of like a surprise, or at least a happy accident, I would say, where, as you could see, I boarded up one, well, it could be a cave entrance or just a cave shaft, and I just boarded it up because the wolf's habitat would otherwise be too large. And then I found out, because the gas pad actually rounds that area, so it comes in on the right and goes out on the left, or vice versa. But I found out that the gas pad is so close actually to that boarded up shaft that I could dig away, let's say, 2 meters of, well, ground, and then the kids had another area to look up or look into the habitat. So a little bit of realism, not really, because probably the kids would like stick their hands in and then lose their hands because they're wolves. But there's a second way to, or like a secret window to look into the habitat. Also, this is surprising, or at least Kayan Al-Bashar has surprised me in a lot of ways. But I did not think I needed to research 15th or 16th century mining. I did not think that I would ever have to do that in my life. However, this gold mine made me do that. Or Kayan Al-Bashar made me do that. So I had to look up like, oh, how did it work? Like, because when I think of a mine, my brain only goes back to, let's say, Industrial Revolution mining. But yeah, I had to look up like, was shaft mining, because somehow there were like different types of mining. Did not know that before I had to research it. But if that was a thing. And then I found out that the biggest problem with mining back then was draining the mine, because water would eventually seep into the mine, which made areas, well, inaccessible or very dangerous. So I basically built a small little aqueduct, which makes the water wheels in the Japanese macaques habitat very accidentally good for the mine. So basically, I didn't think about, oh wait, they need to drain the mine. I built those water wheels purely for the waterfall effect, but now they actually make sense and are actually somewhat functional and realistic in that they are used to drain the mine. But also, it's a gold mine, so I should probably talk about I'm putting a lot of gold. Well, it's sort of gold. I think it's supposed to be gold, but they are classified as just like the ornamental things for the roof. But I just placed them everywhere, so that's why I wanted to have like a lot of nooks, crannies and crevices into the rock work in this mine. So I'm placing a lot of those things just to make it seem like this is like the most prosperous gold mine ever. I did originally want to put arsenic in here because I also found out that there's actually like a mineral form of arsenic, so originally I wanted to do that, but later on I just thought like nah. Also when it's night and the lights actually work, because again, lights don't work in a cave when it's daytime, which is annoying because it doesn't work. And then some habitats just don't work because they're completely dark. But yeah, in the end, with all the golds and the lights at nighttime, it's really just shimmery. Everything just lights up then. Also, fun little thing, I did try something with like perspective to make it look like there's a mine shaft going off from the gas pad that looks just endless. I don't know if it really worked or like I really achieved that effect, but I just found it a small little thing that was interesting. And it was supposed to be small. So yeah, a lot more gold put in there. Tried to find one basket that was a little bit smaller than the rest just so that the perspective would work. And then later on I basically had to dig out that shaft again because I did not take into account when I built the cave walls or basically the shell of the cave. I did not take into account that I would build something like that. So I did in the end put actually a little bit of light right at the end of that sort of like illusion. And then it actually works out. It does look very tiny. And yeah, this is where I wanted to have the lights and then the gold, because the gold is very reflective or gets very shiny. It's a little bit looks like mercury, I would say, where it's like, well, I think we all know how mercury looks because it just looks like a little bit of like a melted anything, but it doesn't go as water. It's weird, but it looks like that and then just pulled on the ground. So I don't know if I achieved the effect with the gold that I wanted, but I think it's as close as I can get. But I really just like all the lights and such, and this is where it gets spooky at daytime because the cave is completely dark, as I said. However, this lighting has a weird effect, I would say, as in the actual light still emits light, but you don't see that area of light around it. So it's, as I said, really creepy at daytime, this place. Whereas the temple is completely, strange. It doesn't work at all at daytime. This place just looks haunted. So you have all these small lights, so you see all these like lights there, but there's no actual area of light. So it looks really strange. And also, for some reason, it's a lot brighter when you put it actually in the cave. So I had to remove some lights because it was just getting a little bit too crazy. But yeah, I could also then remove all the markers so that I could, make it so that it's completely in the same place as it was meant to be, or at least remove the markers after I did that. And then also did have to put in some kind of fence because I have one pillar at the barrier area, I would say, which isn't broken, so I had to build a little bit of a fence there. However, I still think even if I didn't place that fence there, it would still work. I'm still scared if I ever make them or make the wolves not sterile, that wolf cubs would immediately just flood out of the cave. But now to the outside area. So I basically just went with a forest because, well, the inside or one section of their habitat is very extra, I would say. I don't think I've ever seen someone in Plants who built a gold mine yet, or at least to the extent that I did, which kind of is like a toot on my own horn. That's not the right expression, but I think you guys know what I mean. But yeah, for the outside I wanted something a little bit more simple. Also because we have like that huge quarry on the right side of this habitat. I wanted something simple in between the quarry and then you have like Alia slash the Snow Leopard Manor, which is still haunted by the entity. So Alia, I have no idea what you did, but it's still there. It looks kind of adorable. I don't know why. But yeah, let's get back to the actual habitat. So as I said, I wanted something simple in between because all of the habitats so far are like really in your face. But then there's always like a little bit of an area in between where it's not as in your face. So for, let's say, the temple and the tall sheep or the red pandas, you have that farmland in between. Alia's Manor and the tall sheep, you have a forest in between. Here I also wanted to have that forest in between, just as like, this is what the quarry probably looked like before they started mining there. So it was supposed to, or was originally just a huge forest. So this is what that area would have looked like. Also because of the lower elevation, you do have some of those like Sudanese incense trees. Again, I have no idea really why I keep remembering that name. But all the other trees, have no idea how they're named. Or all the other plants, no idea how they're named. Even like the, I would say, staple flower of Kayan Al-Bashar, which is that, I don't know, the tropical, not the ones that I put in right now, the ones that are somewhat pinkish. Well, I have no idea what they're named, but they are basically the staple flower of Kayan Al-Bashar. They used to be everywhere. I have no idea how they're named. Sudanese incense tree somehow keeps popping into my head whenever I want to make a comment here of like, oh yeah, that's what that plant is called. Do you have any idea what the rest is called? Nope. But here I also picked up something from the side project, which is to actually use different colored rocks in the water, as if there's like moss or dirt on those rocks, and the rocks that are out of the water are clean or at least not constantly wet. So I think it worked out well. You don't really see it, but I know that's there, and if you get close to it, you do see it. And I really like this area. It's very, well, very filled with flowers. I do admit that. I do tend to get carried away with flowers and such. Also, it's the area with the last of those huge pine trees. So I originally placed 2 or 3. I deleted 2, so there's only 1 tree remaining. But now to the bit that is kind of where I wandered off with building, because I just wanted to build this. I originally planned this to build this 2 episodes after this, so well, yeah, next week Friday I plan to build this, but I just thought, why not start now? So yeah, I'm building a gypsy or Romani caravan, or at least car. Or, yeah, I don't know what's like the most appropriate term. I think most people know gypsy, but then I think the preferred term is Romani, so I don't know what I should call it. So do let me know, because this, as I said, might be most interesting to Terra. So do let me know what is like the preferred term, because I have no idea, but, or at least what is your preferred term. But I really actually like the gypsy cart, or, well, what was the name of it? Like sometimes I forget the most basic words. So yeah, let's just call it cart or wagon. Yeah. So I did look up the reference as gypsy wagon, but I do know that I think Romani is the preferred term to be used, but I really actually like how it looks. Also, the reference images were sometimes not the most useful because people were like in front of places where I need to know how that place or that thing looks like, and then there's someone sitting on it. So later on I will say what that place was, but this is I think the first build that is cylindrical that I have ever built. Also, it's not completely cylindrical, it's more like a, what do you call it? Horseshoe like, because well, the angle changes slightly when you get down. But I really like this. For some reason, like, it's not the most in-your-face build. Well, it is bright red, and I do keep it bright red, because from what I've seen, those Romani or Gypsy wagons, they are usually very heavily decorated, sometimes very heavily colored or painted, and I actually really like that, because, well, I will get more into like the Gypsy slash Romani talk later when we actually get to the episode that is going to be completely dedicated to that. But I really just like that most of the Mirage Mountains so far is brown, green, and some flowers. And then you have these wagons which can be very colorful. So instead of like all those pink trees, because I don't think they are like endemic, I think that's the word for it, or like they don't grow naturally in the Mirage Mountains. They are more specifically to the valley of Kayan Al-Bashar. But these wagons really just bring in the pop of color that you want in an area. Like if everything is just one tone or one color, it easily gets boring. But yeah, Tara, I am going to ask you one thing, which is basically to come up with the backstory of this wagon. Because in the end, this wagon ends up on a lone island. Like one of those floating islands is in no way connected to the rest, but it's not like it's destroyed or anything, it just sits there happily. So your, well, thing for today's video is, can you make up a backstory? How did the wagon end up there? Who is riding it? Or who is driving it? I don't think this is your wagon, Tara, but I think maybe it's, well, the original story I went with was that it's just someone went completely off rails by whatever was available at the festival at Karshanik, and then just, or the village of Karshanik to explain further, and somehow ended up on a lone island. But Tara, I'm leaving you to define the entire story of how did this cart end up on a lone island with no connection to the mainland at all, and these wagons can't float, they can't fly. I'm not putting any like sails or something on them, but yeah, that's your thing for today's video, Tara. Find the backstory. Preferably probably one that's funny, because I do think that the backstory could be pretty funny of like, how did he get there? Now I look at the footage, I see the struggle trying to build wheels. And I found, I think, the tiniest metal piece in the game. Because the wheels, this is where I really went into like very specific detail. The wheels, usually they are completely wooden, and then they have like this steel frame or metal frame so that it doesn't get very quickly damaged. And I found that one of, I think it's the light fixtures, like the modern light fixtures, it's a very tiny metal frame. But it works perfectly for what I wanted, that steel metal frame. In the end, I did make the wheels larger because it does have that like wooden out, or that wooden circle before you get the steel frame. And actually it works pretty great, because originally I wanted the wheels to be smaller. However, the cart itself is not that small, so if I went with the original idea, I would have tiny wheels. And then it wouldn't have worked. Also, I do realize that today's video is a little bit longer than the rest of the videos, because, as I said, I basically wandered off, got distracted, and started building a Romani slash gypsy caravan. Wagon. What? How many times can I say a different word for the same thing? But yeah, in the end, I also put in a chimney on the actual wagon because I did saw that in some references because, well, this is a living area or the home of someone. But I did see in one reference picture that the people were sitting in front of the wagon. However, they had whatever type of clothing. I think they had very wide pants or something, so I couldn't see what they were sitting on. So I basically just imagined like, oh, they could be sitting on something. It didn't look like a chair, it looked like it should be attached to the wagon, so that's basically what I did. Also, I needed to make the place where you like put in the horse, or in this case probably the camel, and then I just, to guess how big something should be, I put in a stack, or that deer statue, just to give a slight idea of like, alright, am I making something too small or too large? And also this type of wagon with like the horseshoe roof. There are different kinds, but this one usually had like the curtains closing the inside area off from the outside. However, the curtains that we have in game, like I couldn't imagine how I would do that because they don't provide round curtains. Gave a little bit of like a reference to that by the curtains on the outside, but in the end I did go with something different and just, you know, something that was achievable in game. Yeah, in the end I do again place it on just a lone island. I'm going to build more of these because I really enjoy building these for some reason. Maybe it's because they're so colorful that's just like cheering me up every time I build one of them. But I'm going to build more of these wagons just because I think the one thing that could connect all of Kayan Al-Bashar could be the Romani slash gypsy caravans, camps, wagons, everything. And that's going to be it for today's video. Again, Terra, I leave it to you to find the backstory of how this card came on this lone island. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one. I wish you all an amazing day. Bye bye.